community garden, rent a location, share equipment costs, grow together, you know, share some of the burdens. This is a real successful way for people to work together, build some community, build some social bonds, and also produce good medicine in a cost-effective manner. You can't do that, right? You can only have 3 in any one place. The government also said, in terms of the relationship between the designated producer, the person growing marijuana for the authorized patient, that has to be a 1-to-1 ratio. If you are designated by me to grow marijuana for me, sir, you can only grow for me. You can't grow for anyone else, no matter how many people might want you to, no matter how good you might be, no matter whether or not you have a facility capable of growing for 100 people. And we challenged those 2 provisions successfully, and the judge found those 2 provisions to be unconstitutional. It was the 5th time in terms of the 1-to-1 ratio that the court has found that provision to be arbitrary and violative of the charter. We're hoping that this time it'll stick and the government won't simply reintroduce that provision as they did in 2003 at the end of the Hitzig decision. The Hitzig court said in 2003, that 1-to-1 ratio doesn't make any sense, government. You can't justify that. Why can't somebody that's an expert marijuana grower grow for 100 people? It's certainly easier to go in and regulate that production facility than it is to go and find 100 different individual grows. We're striking that as unconstitutional. The government brought it back in immediately, right in place, and they decided to start selling marijuana at that point. Because prior to 2003, they didn't sell marijuana at all. You had really no way to get it. Whole bunch of problems on the supply side still exist. You know, where do you get your seeds from? Well, the only legal place to get seeds is Health Canada. They only sell you the 1 strain that they're growing in the mine in Manitoba. Marijuana is a plant that has, just like, for example, tomatoes. You're familiar with all different kinds of tomatoes. Well, there's all the different kinds of marijuana. And they have different ratios of effective ingredients, and some work for some people, some don't work for some people. The government has 1 strain of seeds. Technically, you can't get seeds from anyone else. That's illegal. You can't get clones from anyone else. That's illegal, because that's an illegal transaction. So there still remains sort of a whole bunch of open issues, but at least we're getting to the point where, you know, patients' collectives appear to be on the horizon. Dedicated growers that can grow for, say, 10 or 15 people appears to be something that the government's going to have to allow at some point in the future. Progress is being made towards a better supply model, and in my view, at least what I'm going to sort of start to focus my attention on as a litigator in this area, is the access piece. Because it doesn't really matter to me if you've got a good supply system if only less than 0.001% of medical users in this country have the legal ability to access that supply system. And that's where we stand today, 3,000 out of maybe 1 million people. It's, in my view, an absolute tragedy. I'm happy to say much more about all of these topics as we go along, but I'm going to shut up now. Yeah, I saw just a couple of minutes.
I've had a specialist offer me, without even asking, a prescription for synthetic THC. I went up to London Drugs,
sure,
and the pharmacist said to get a decent dose of it, it's $600 a month.
Yes.
So there is some work, I guess, going on in that field.
I mean, as with all medicines, for some people it will work. For some people it will not work. For some people it will be cost effective, and for some people it won't. There's some synthetic THCs, and there's some natural THC extracts in pharmaceutical form. One's a spray, a couple of pills. By and large, the research seems to suggest, both anecdotally and in some limited double-blind studies, that the raw plant is better and more effective and easier to use, frankly, than the synthetics. And you know, the benefit of being able to grow it relatively cheaply for yourself is probably something that can't be overstated, especially for people fixed incomes or disability.
Who funds all these? Who funds all these court challenges?
Well, that's a very good question. The one we just finished, the Barron case, was funded in large part by the Vancouver Island Compassion Society, nominally. The reality is probably closer to John Conroy and myself not really charging full freight to do the cases. I mean, the VIX case probably, start to finish, is about $500,000 case. They're nowhere near near that with fees, and it's not really my place to get deeper into that issue. The Hitzig case, I think, was funded initially partly by the people, the litigants, partly again a lawyer took it on the cheap or on the free, on reduced rates, or at least was willing to accept the risk, because Hitzig was a civil case, so when they won, they got costs. The government had to pay the lawyers' fees for the applicants. It doesn't work like that in criminal law. So it's been a bit of a mixture. There were some private donors. We had a little bit of institutional funding from various social organizations in the VIX case. But to give you an example, the photocopying costs alone were this hard fixed. Can't do anything about photocopying costs for over $15,000. All of our experts donated their time, donated their travel. All of our patients donated their time, and so it's a group effort. And I was really proud to be a part of such an effort by a group of really dedicated people who are willing to really put it out on the line for something that they believed in.
I'm wondering if, you may not be able to answer this, but some of them may. The pharmaceutical companies in Canada, obviously this is something that got their legs behind it. There could just be a huge amount of revenue generated for them. However, if the government does finally decide, okay, this is asinine, let's just legalize this and let people who need it get it. Yeah. And that way they do not need you Demerol, they do not need to use morphine. Are the pharmaceutical companies behind it, or are they owner behind the government saying, "Don't do that, man. You take money out of our pocket"?
I'd suspect the latter is absolutely unequivocally true. There is no doubt that pharmaceutical companies oppose both natural health products and natural health product regulations in Canada, as well as medicinal cannabis. It will eat into their revenue stream. Now, the flip side of that is there's a lot of pharmaceutical companies pouring a lot of money into researching the effect of the compounds in marijuana in an attempt to create pharmaceutical-type drugs. The field of cannabinoid research is probably one of the most rapidly developing fields in sort of cutting-edge research in medicine today, and there are literally hundreds of peer-reviewed published studies on the effects of cannabinoids, both in humans and in animal studies. Cannabinoids being most of the active ingredients in marijuana, but not all of them. But there's still a lot to understand about this, about these plants, about these compounds, about the way they interact with the body. The cannabinoid receptor systems weren't discovered all that long ago, and so our knowledge is really in its infancy with respect to these types of active compounds.
Just a little comment on that, what Chris was talking about, is actually the biggest company right now is called GW Pharmaceuticals, and they're out of Germany. They've now synthesized 97 different synthetic compounds from cannabis drugs over the last 60 years, actually. Their first one being in 1941 called H210, which was 800 times more stronger than that. So they've actually been working on this for a long time, which the general public does not know, so it's actually quite interesting to start getting research out of this. But yeah, there's 97 compounds, 97 different synthetic drugs made from cannabis right now.
We're going to take a little break at this point. I think there's going to be a lot more to talk about here. These are two medical